Right now, as we speak, they are taking the vote to nominate JD Vance. You just heard that aye. The ayes have it. JD Vance is the Republican nominee for vice president, the 39-year-old senator, freshman senator from Ohio. This decision was a mystery up until today, until the word started leaking just a few hours ago. Vance has entered the arena. We expect him to get up and make some remarks in just a minute. Also today, Donald Trump was formally announced and nominated as the presidential candidate for the Republican ticket, and earlier his kids made that official.
On behalf of our entire family and on behalf of the 125 delegates in the unbelievable state of Florida, we hereby nominate every single one of them for the greatest president that's ever lived, and that's Donald J. Trump, hereby declaring him the Republican nominee for President of the United States of America.
Now Speaker Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, the Republican, is about to take the stage to make some comments about the vice presidential selection, and then it appears that we will hear from JD Vance after that. He's on the floor with his wife, Usha. Now, this pick is being universally praised within the Illinois delegation. Earlier today, Congressman Mike Boss said that this was a pick that he was thrilled with. He thinks that it'll help bring in younger voters. He thinks it'll help with the Rust Belt states. And last week, I floated the possibility of JD Vance to another Illinois Congressman, Darren LaHood. Here's what he had to say.
I think JD Vance is right there, senator from Ohio. As you look at the states, particularly in the Midwest, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, I think he brings a lot to the table.
So JD Vance, folks might remember years ago in 2016, he was very critical of former President Trump. He was quoted as a never-Trumper. In his book, Hillbilly Elegy, which I did read all those years ago, he was very critical of the Republican Party for what he saw as perhaps pandering to some of those Rust Belt working-class voters that were struggling in the economy. But he did an about-face. He's gotten a lot of criticism for that, including from his own party. Utah Senator Mitt Romney, very harsh words for JD Vance, and that apparent 180 that he almost did overnight from sort of espousing some of the things that he criticized many, many years ago in his book. There's a Chicago connection here, too. Chicago does not have a official full-time U.S. attorney leading the Justice Department there. Morris Pasquale is the acting U.S. attorney right now, leading all those prosecutions. The reason is the nominee, April Perry, was held up by who? By JD Vance, Senator JD Vance, a sort of retribution against President Joe Biden. So a little Chicago connection there with JD Vance. What everyone is saying here is the number one qualification, not only to be ready to take the spot as commander-in-chief, leader of the free world, should he have to on day one, but absolute loyalty to the agenda of Donald Trump. That's something that we know is very important to Trump. This party has been completely remade in his image, Donald Trump's image. I remember 2016, many Republican officials were not at the convention in Cleveland. They were running as far as they could from Donald Trump. They didn't like him, and they didn't think he was going to win. A lot changes in 8 years. So, again, we await the words of the vice presidential nominee in the Republican ticket, J.D. Vance. But for now, Sylvia and Terrence, we will toss it back to you, and we will monitor the events from the Fiserv Forum here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
If I can, if you're still there, Paris, I wanted to ask you, because you brought up such a good point, that he is basically somebody who backs President Trump and his beliefs. What about for moderate Republicans? Do you think this is a disappointment? Maybe were some thinking that he might go with a more moderate choice?
Well, I don't know who that choice would have been, Sylvia, especially when you look at the makeup of the Illinois Republican Party right now and the infighting that's happened. The moderates have been pushed out, and that kind of mirrors what's happened in the party nationwide. It's either get on board with the Trump agenda or perhaps you don't have a place in this party. So if you look at Marco Rubio, the senator from Florida, and Doug Burgum, the governor, I don't know that you would describe their bona fides as moderate either. It seems like moderate conservative isn't the paradigm anymore. It's, are you sufficiently on board the Trump agenda or are you not? Those are the qualifications at this point, and clearly J.D. Vance made the case that not only was he, but he would be more than anyone else that the president or the former president could have selected.